That's why the last job at 13 Central. Five George K. 496 Broadway, McKinney Boulevard. Let's go to Central. More than half for the Broadway. Number 30 Broad Street, 1022.
Hey everybody, I'm David Ridings. Thanks for joining us. It's been a long time since we've gone live. I took some time off over the holidays and have been busy, honestly, running for judge in Nashville. You'll see the ticker below to text your name to 188 Dr. Judge. That's 188-375-8343, and you will be opted into our SMS list. I'll be texting, just reminders about early voting, reminders about election day come May the 3rd. I need your support. It's going to be a big election. It's a little overwhelming. I've been doing this, 35 years on every side of the justice system. Worked for the police department for a decade, worked for the DA's office. When I was in my last year of law school, I got licensed a year early, worked for Davidson County DA's office for a year, and then opened my own law firm in Nashville in 1998. Have been doing 99% criminal defense. Well, 100% criminal defense now, but over the years, I've done various types of law, practiced primarily in General Sessions Court in Davidson County, and now I'm running for judge in Davidson County for General Sessions Judge Division 7. Judge Higgins is retiring, and I am running for his soon-to-be open seat. So thank you very much for your support, for all of you who have messaged me and called me and helped our campaign. I'm just humbled, really am. So thanks for that. Tonight, I wanted to show you I want to talk about a couple of things. I've had a couple of cases that came in that reminded me I don't talk about this enough. Most people in the criminal justice system, most people who are arrested or they find themselves being investigated by the police or they're pulled over by the police. Sometimes the police knock on your door. There are various reasons that the police could be doing that, but most people don't know what to do. Most people don't know what to do or how to react when they're being pulled over by the police. We're going to start having free seminars beginning in 2022. I'm going to try to set these up at local churches. I think that's the best venue for it because I want it to be free. I want it to be open to the community, and I want to teach people how to interact with the police. It's something that doesn't get taught in schools, and it's time that changed. I'm not going to obviously be teaching in schools, although I do advocate for that. I'm going to do courses, just a community seminar to basically give you the tools that you would need to be pulled over by the police or to interact with the police. We'll talk a little bit about the Constitution. I'm having some pocket constitutions printed, and we'll have those at some point. We'll have those on our website. Right now, you can go support Ridings for Judge at ridingsforjudge.com, and be sure to text your name to 888-375-8343 to be opted into our SMS list. And that will help me. It helps me significantly to have a number of people that we can reach out to on election day and say, hey, it's election day. Go vote. It's going to be a low turnout election for the most part because it's in May and there's nothing national on the ballot. There are only local judicial races on the ballot, and the DA's race is probably going to be the most notable race on this ballot. But the election is May the 3rd, and I want everybody at the sound of my voice to be sure to vote on May the 3rd. So I wanted to show this video. I just came across this. It's a new video. And it's just, when I first watched it, I watched a news report of it. They really didn't give the best reporting of what happened. This was a call from Burlington. I'm going to play the LAPD's version. And it basically tells what happened, and I'm going to skip a little bit of this in the beginning. But this captain tells what happened, and he goes through some of the 911 calls and what the police knew when they arrived on the scene. And then we'll talk about it.
Relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case so you can have a better understanding of what occurred based on what we know right now. Officers assigned to North Hollywood Division responded to a radio call of an assault with a deadly weapon in progress at a business in the 12,100 block of Victory Boulevard. While en route to the location, the officers received multiple radio calls from the same location that there was a possible shooting in progress and there were individuals sheltering in place. Here are several 911 calls and radio broadcasts from this incident.
Evacuate the building, everybody! Evacuate the building! What's the emergency? I had a hostile customer in my store attacking customers. Okay. 12121 Victory Way. Ma'am, what was it, a male or female? Ma'am, he's breaking things. Ma'am, hello. I need you to listen to me so I can send some help. Yeah. Is it a male or a female? Male. What's the name of your store? Burlington.
So this is the gentleman as he comes into the store. It sounded like gunshots on that radio broadcast, but it was not. He did not have a firearm. He had this chain, this bike chain around his shoulder, and he entered the store. You have to wonder what his. No, you don't wonder. I mean, he's obviously not mentally there. He's wandering around. This is a computer screen that he knocked off, like an iPad or some type of computer screen display. And he tries to break this glass with this chain. He's just not there. This is a female who doesn't realize she's in a hurry. And this is one of the reasons that I'm showing this during Christmas time. We all get in a hurry. And sometimes we just run through the stores, and I've done this before, what this lady just did. She just goes down the escalator, not paying any attention to this guy that's in front of her. And she didn't know that he was having a mental break, clearly. And she goes past him, and then he attacks her, and he tries to steal her purse, basically tackles her to the ground, and then just assaults her. And he's just touched.
He attempted to grab her, but she was able to break free and run out of the store. The suspect then went back up to the second floor, to the area by the dressing room, where he observed a third female pushing a shopping cart. The suspect approached that female from behind and struck her over the head with the bike lock. That female crawled away, and the suspect grabbed her and dragged her near the dressing room and continued to beat her with the lock. As officers arrived,
now you have to wonder why he drug her back there. I don't know what he was going to do. It hasn't been proven necessarily what he was going to do, but it looked like he was dragging this female back there for some type of sexual assault. Why else would he be dragging her to the back of the store? He was just swinging this chain wildly and assaulting people, and then he assaulted this female and decided to drag her back to the back of the store. But the police come in, and well, we'll just watch what happens.
Arrived at the location. They were directed upstairs to the suspect and began a search.
Hey, get distance. Hey, back up. Victim down. Victim down.
During that search, officers located a female who was suffering from various injuries and bleeding.
Hey, she's bleeding. She's bleeding.
They encountered the suspect a short distance away, and an officer-involved shooting occurred. The suspect was struck by gunfire and taken into custody. The Los Angeles Fire Department paramedics responded and determined the suspect deceased at scene.
So this guy gets shot and killed at the scene. When I saw this video the first time, that was pretty much all we saw. The police officer shot him because he felt like he had some type of weapon. There were calls that there was a shooting. He may have thought that this guy had a gun. He has to justify why he used deadly force. And I'm not going to get into that, whether or not that was proper here or not. But he also has to live with the aftermath of this shooting. And I didn't play that part yet, but let's watch what happened behind the scenes.
Unbeknownst to the officers, a 14-year-old girl was in the changing room behind a wall that was behind.
So this is where the guy was. This pool of blood right here is where the guy was standing. The part of the video you just saw, the line of fire. You can see this this light beam here. He fired. It went into this dressing room in the back and killed a 14-year-old girl who was back there with her mother, changing clothes and trying on dresses. So there's just no words for how you feel when you see something like this happen. It's just tragic. I don't know if any disciplinary action has been taken against the officer. The officer will be investigated for whether or not it was proper to use deadly force here. And he has to, his liability follows that bullet wherever it goes. Is it something the officer should be arrested for? No, I don't think that at all. He'll have to justify why he used deadly force. I'm interested to see what you think. And Otis says 100%. Thanks for watching, Otis. I'm interested to see what you think about whether or not the shooting was proper, whether the officer should have fired his firearm at this suspect, given what they knew and what he saw, and whether or not there should be any civil or criminal liability even for the bullet traveling in through the wall in the backdrop and killing this girl in the dressing room. I don't think it's reasonable to have foreseen that happening to the extent that it was some type of reckless act that led to her death. That's what some in the media, I'm sure, will portray. But I'm interested in what you think. At the end of the day, this is just a very tragic
Behind the suspect and
accident.
out of the officer's view. She was in the changing area with her mother when the officers encountered the suspect and the officer-involved shooting occurred. During a search for additional suspects and victims, officers found the girl and discovered she had been struck by gunfire, and she was determined deceased at scene. The suspect was later identified as Daniel Elena Lopez, a 24-year-old resident of Los Angeles. We at the LAPD.
He goes on just to say how terrible they feel at the LAPD for what happened, and it's just a really tragic incident. So over the holidays, I picked up a case, and I'm not going to tell where or what jurisdiction it was in, or obviously anything about the parties, but I had the occasion to talk to some parents about the police knocking at their door with questions for one of their children. There was an incident where some boys were alleged to have committed a crime. Doesn't matter what kind of crime. But the police knocked on the door of the father. This is a family that's going through a divorce. The mother lives in another location. The son was over at the father's house. The police come. Mother's on the Ring camera. There's a Ring camera outside. And so she sees the police there, and she's logged in through the Ring camera. And she's talking to the police through the Ring camera, and her son's standing on the front porch. The police wanted to question the young man about something that happened, and the mother said no. He wants an attorney. He needs an attorney. You know, don't talk to them. Don't answer their questions without an attorney. The boy didn't say that. The boy just said, I didn't do it. We've talked about this before under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, which I will post here. The Fifth Amendment says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment of indictment or grand jury, except in cases, blah, blah, blah. It goes on to say that you can't be held liable for the same or subject to the same offense or put twice in jeopardy. And you cannot be compelled. This is the important part for tonight's video. Compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against yourself or deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. What that means is you don't have to talk to the police, but that's a Fifth Amendment privilege that you have to invoke verbally. A lot of people that I come into contact with who've been charged with a crime, whether it's DUI or possession of drugs or sometimes domestic assault or other things, most people know what their rights are. They can say, I have the right to remain silent. Anything I say can and will be used against me in the court of law. I have the right to an attorney and have one present during questioning. If I so desire and can't afford an attorney, one will be appointed for me. Blah, blah, blah. But most people, even though they know those rights, they don't know what it means. And they don't know really how to invoke them or when to invoke them. When the police knock on your door to question one of your children about a crime, your child should have an attorney, period. The police are going to say, well, we just want to hear your side of the story. The police are allowed to lie in order to extract a confession. They're allowed to make up evidence and say they have evidence that they don't have. They're allowed to say, hey, I've got this. I don't have a disc here to show you, but this happened. One of my clients was called into the police department, and he pulled out a disc, a DVD, and he laid it on the table and he said, well, there was a hidden camera in this home and we have everything on tape. And so you might as well just help yourself and tell me your side of the story. Truth was, there was no camera. There was no video. But this kid didn't know that. And he basically just told the police everything that they wanted him to say and admitted his involvement and everything in the crime and basically confessed. And that's a valid confession. If it's voluntarily given, even though he wouldn't have given it had the police not lied to him, the Supreme Court by case law has said that the police are allowed to do that. So the police are allowed to lie and make up things in order to get you to confess. If you talk to the police and you give them an alibi and you say, it wasn't me, I wasn't there, here's where I was, and you give them a self-serving statement and you say, I didn't do it. I didn't rob that bank. I was in Chicago at the time and I can prove it. So-and-so and so-and-so were with me. And you get to court later, that statement is not admissible into court, believe it or not. If the statement is self-serving and you make it to the police, it's not admissible for the jury to hear. But if you make a statement against your interest and confess to the crime, that is admissible to the court and for the jury to hear. So a statement that's good for you is not admissible. A statement that's bad for you is admissible. You have the right to not make any statement at all, and you have the right to remain silent. And you should use that for that very reason, because the police are allowed to lie to extract a confession. They're allowed to say anything they want to say. They're allowed to use your statements against you if they're against your interest, and they're not going to allow any statement that's for you or in your best interest to be admitted into court at a later jury trial. For all of those reasons, you should not be talking to the police if they come knocking on your door, and you shouldn't let your children do that. One of the parents here wanted the child to tell his story, wanted to tell his side and basically tell the truth and admit what he did. The other parent wanted him to have an attorney before he said anything. There was some back and forth about that. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because the young boy, the 17-year-old boy, did not say, "I want a lawyer." He has to say that. You have to invoke your right to an attorney in order for it to be valid. If you're a teenager, you're a minor, you're under the age of 18, and you ask for a parent, even if your parent is an attorney, that doesn't invoke your right to an attorney. So you always have to say, I don't wish to make any statements without an attorney, officer. I'm sorry. I don't answer questions without a lawyer. If you're pulled over by the police and they suspect you of driving under the influence, or they suspect you of driving without a license, whatever they suspect you of, and they ask you questions, you should very politely say, "I'm sorry, officer, I don't answer questions without a lawyer." These are just things that everybody should know. And most people do know, they just don't know how to invoke them. They don't know how to do it. So I'm going to, at some point, I would like to show some body cam footage of this kind of thing, of officers knocking on doors and how, what the person should have done. It's not it won't be a case that I personally have. I can't do that, but I can come up with body cam footage of examples where police officers knock on the door and they ask questions. For example, it's very common when I was a police officer, we would get complaints all the time of somebody selling drugs out of the neighbor's house. This neighbor over here is, they're whatever. They have people coming and going all hours of the night, and we're just confident that they're selling drugs and we want somebody to investigate it. Well, a call like that is not enough to establish probable cause to go get a search warrant. So what the police sometimes will do is they'll go to the house in question. They'll go to the neighbor's house. And they'll knock on the door. And if somebody comes to the door and opens the door and they smell weed, that is enough to go get a search warrant. It's not enough to just barge in and search the house without a warrant. They still would need a warrant to search a house based upon probable cause. But what they'll sometimes do is they'll get the person to come out to the porch and they'll say, "Hey, we just wanted to talk to you. We had a complaint about somebody selling drugs out here. And, you're not doing that, right?" And of course they deny it and say, "No, we're not selling drugs." Well, then, you wouldn't mind if I came in and looked around, just to make sure that, well, anytime a police officer asks if it's okay for him to come in and look around, your immediate answer should be, "No, thank you, officer. I don't care for you to do that," because you have the right not to have the police come in your home. You don't even have to answer the door if the police knock on your door, unless they knock on your door and say search warrant or arrest warrant or if they have a warrant of some type, then they may have privileges that that they don't have on a regular knock and talk or a consensual conversation kind of case. So it's just important for you to establish, number one, who it is knocking at your door, because we also get this time of year, we get people who pretend to be the police knock on the door and do home invasions and things of that nature. It's just a dangerous time now. And if you're up to no good and the police knock on your door, why would you go to the door and open the door? And certainly, why would you invite them into your home to search without a warrant? Going out and talking to the police without an attorney is just a bad idea. Now, I love the police. I used to be a police officer, so I support the police. I love good cops. And I don't like bad cops. But you ask any good cop what he hates the most, and he'll tell you probably is a bad cop. It's just hard to tell the difference between a good cop and a bad cop without some underlying information or some evidence of one or the other. With that said, you just need to remember that you have the right to remain silent. You have the right under the Fifth Amendment not to give evidence against yourself. You have these Miranda rights. Even if the police don't read them to you, you still have them. A lot of people think that their rights don't kick in until the cops read them their rights. And a lot of people will tell me, I got arrested and they never read me my rights. And I made all these statements. And if you've made statements and you were in custody and the police didn't read your rights to you, then you may have something there, something that a good attorney can fight in court and maybe file motions to suppress or something of that nature to keep the statements out from being used against you. Those are things that you fight in the courtroom. And in our classes, these free seminars that we're going to be doing in 2022, we teach people all the time, don't fight this out on the street. If you have a legitimate argument and you know you're right and the cop insists on arresting you or insists on doing something that violates your civil rights, the best thing to do is to allow him to violate your civil rights on the street. You don't fight it out on the street. That's not the place for you to win. The place for you to win is in the courtroom. And if you get a good attorney and you get a good judge, you're going to have a good day in court if the police do something wrong. Now, most cops out there aren't out there to do wrong. The majority of police are good people, good men and women who love their community and love serving and helping people and fighting crime. There are a few bad ones who really make the rest look bad. And we're in a day and age now that we're weeding those bad officers out. And the best way to do that is with the HD camera that everybody's got in their pocket. Because if you get a good video of a bully cop, that's hard for that person to overcome. And when you discover that you have a bad cop or a bully cop or a cop that's not following the law, you expose him, and eventually we eradicate them from the system. We have to get the bad cops out of there. It's just as simple as that. So really, that was really all I wanted to do tonight, is just show that one video and talk a little bit about your rights and help you understand the right to remain silent, how it needs to be invoked and when it needs to be invoked. We say here, invoke your rights early and often. You always have the right to remain silent, and you should always use that right. Thanks for watching. We're going to be back in 2022 with more video, and and seminars that we'll bring more information to you about that at a later date. In the meantime, text your name to 888 Dr. Judge. That's 888-375-8343 to support David Ridings for judge. And the election again is on May the 3rd, 2022. Thanks for watching.
I got this storm in my head, a forest fire in my chest. Look at the time on the clock, man, I'm gonna sleep when I'm dead. Whether you're ready or not, I'm rolling in like